Getting Past No, by William Ury. Host. On a tense Thursday morning in Brooklyn, New York, the sprawling campus of Kings County Hospital became a fortress. Police cars swarmed the entrances, their lights painting the brick walls in strokes of red and blue. Inside, in a cramped basement locker room, a convicted armed robber named Larry Van Dyke was holding 5 hospital employees hostage. He was cornered. He was desperate. And he had a gun. He'd already shot a corrections officer during a failed escape attempt. Now, with nothing left to lose, he sent a chilling message out with a released hostage: "I want out of here, or I'm going to start killing people." A decade earlier, this story would have likely ended in a hail of gunfire. The old playbook was simple: surround the building, shout through a bullhorn, fire tear gas, and storm the doors. But on this day, the New York City Police Department decided to try something different. Instead of sending in a SWAT team, they sent in a negotiator. Detective Robert Loden approached the closed locker room door. He didn't shout commands. He didn't issue threats. He shouted, "How you doing? My name's Bob, and I'm here to see what's going on. I'm here to help sort this out." Van Dyke's reply was sharp and full of despair: "I've got nothing to lose. I'm not going back to jail. You've got 30 minutes to give me my freedom." What would you do? An impossible demand. An immovable position. A ticking clock. Every instinct screams to argue, to say, "That's impossible," to meet force with force. But Detective Loden did none of those things. He was playing a different game. A game designed not to win a fight, but to win over an adversary. This is the world of getting past number. It's a world where the most powerful moves are often the most counterintuitive. The author, William Ury, is one of the co-founders of the Harvard program on negotiation and co-author of the legendary bestseller, Getting to Yes. But after that book became a global phenomenon, people kept asking him the same question over and over: "That's all great, but what do I do when the other side is difficult? What if they're irrational, angry, and just won't cooperate? What do I do when they just say no?" This podcast is the answer to that question. It's not just a set of tactics for a business meeting. It is a roadmap for handling the most difficult conversations of your life, with a stubborn boss, an unreasonable client, a defiant teenager, or even an armed man in a basement. By the time we're done here today, you will have the 5-step strategy that hostage negotiators, world-class diplomats, and master dealmakers use to break through barriers, diffuse tension, and turn adversaries into partners. This isn't about learning to argue better. It's about learning to stop arguing altogether and still get what you want. So let's step into the world of breakthrough negotiation and discover how to get past number. Book summary. Have you ever found yourself in one of those arguments that just goes in circles? Maybe it's with your parents about curfew, or a friend about a misunderstanding. You state your case. They state theirs. You repeat yourself, a little louder this time. They dig their heels in. Before you know it, you're no longer talking about the problem, you're just attacking each other. It feels like you have only 2 options: be soft to save the relationship but give up what you want, or be hard to win your point but damage the relationship, maybe for good. William Ury tells us this is a false choice. There is a third way: joint problem solving. It's soft on the people, hard on the problem. Instead of facing off against each other from across a table, you mentally move to the same side, sitting shoulder to shoulder, looking at the problem together. This sounds great in theory. But what happens when the other person doesn't want to play? What happens when they're emotional, dug into their position, and see you as the enemy? This is where Ury's 5-step breakthrough strategy comes in. It's a journey that starts not with them, but with you. Step 1. Don't react. Go to the balcony. The single biggest mistake we make in a difficult negotiation is to react without thinking. Ury says we are reaction machines. When someone attacks us, our instinct is to attack back. When they take an extreme position, we take an extreme position. When they pressure us, we either push back or we crumble and give in. Imagine a senior manager who has developed a brilliant new information system for his company. He needs all the plant managers to agree to implement it. Everyone says yes except for the manager of the biggest plant. He says, "I don't want your people fooling around in my business. I can do the job better on my own." The systems manager, frustrated, reacts. He threatens to go to the company president. This, of course, only enrages the plant manager. The appeal backfires, the president refuses to intervene, and the brilliant new system dies on the drawing table. The manager reacted, and in doing so, he lost. Ury gives us a powerful metaphor to stop this cycle. He says, "Go to the balcony." Imagine any negotiation you're in is happening on a stage. When you feel that knot in your stomach, that flush of anger, that urge to lash out, that's your cue. Mentally, you need to climb up to a balcony overlooking that stage. From the balcony, you can see everything with clarity. You can see the whole play unfolding. You can see your opponent playing their part, but you can also see yourself playing your part. You can see the cycle of action and reaction. From the balcony, you don't just see the argument, you see the dynamics behind it. You can regain your mental balance and remember what's truly important. The goal isn't to get even, it's to get what you want. The prize is a good agreement. Going to the balcony gives you that crucial moment to pause, to breathe, to suspend your natural, destructive impulse. It's the first and most important step, because if you can't control your own behavior, you have no hope of influencing theirs. It's the moment you decide to stop being a reaction machine and start being a strategist. Once you're on the balcony, calm and focused, you're ready for the next step. You've managed your own emotions. Now it's time to deal with theirs. Step 2. Don't argue, step to their side. You're calm. You're ready for a logical, problem-solving discussion. But the other person is still emotional. They're angry, suspicious, and afraid. Their ears are closed. If you try to reason with them now, your words will just bounce off. Before you can talk about the problem, you have to disarm the person. How do you do that? With surprise. They expect you to argue. They expect you to resist. They expect you to push back. So you do the exact opposite. You step to their side. This is not the same as agreeing with them. It's about seeing the situation from their perspective. Ury breaks this down into 3 simple, powerful actions: listen, acknowledge, and agree. First, listen. Really listen. Most of the time, we don't listen. We're just reloading, waiting for our turn to talk. Ury calls this a dialogue of the deaf, but when you give someone a real hearing, you give them the cheapest concession you can possibly make. You satisfy a deep human need, the need to be understood. Let them vent. Don't interrupt. Let them tell their whole story. When they're done, ask if there's anything else. Then, to show you've heard them, paraphrase what they've said. So, let me make sure I understand. You feel that this simple act can be transformational. It takes the wind out of their sails. It shows respect. And it makes them more willing to listen to you in return. Second, acknowledge. After listening, you acknowledge their point. This doesn't mean you agree with it. It just means you recognize it as a valid perspective for them. You can say, "I can see why you feel that way," or "You have a point there," or "If I were in your shoes, I'd probably see it the same way." You also need to acknowledge their feelings. Behind an attack is often anger. behind a stone wall is often fear. So you can say, I can understand why you're angry, or I can appreciate how frustrating this must be. You're not saying their anger is justified, you're just acknowledging that it exists. This simple validation helps to diffuse the emotion, clearing the way for reason. Sometimes, the most powerful form of acknowledgement is an apology. Even if you feel you're only 10% responsible for the problem, apologize for your 10%. It's a bold, disarming gesture that can start a process of reconciliation. Third, agree. Wherever you can, agree. You don't have to concede anything. Just find a piece of common ground. An American senator once told his staff, if a constituent says something you disagree with 99%, I want you to say, I agree with you, and focus on the 1% of agreement. A powerful technique here is to replace the word but with the word and. If a client says, your price is too high, don't say, but the quality is excellent. That but negates everything that came before it. Instead, say, yes, our price is higher, and what that gives you is superior quality and reliability. It frames your view as an addition, not a contradiction. By stepping to their side, by listening, acknowledging, and agreeing, you do something remarkable. You break down the wall between you. You show them respect. It's disorienting for them. They came prepared for a fight, and you've invited them into a conversation. They start to think, this person actually understands me. Maybe, just maybe, I can negotiate with them. That's the crack in the wall you've been looking for. Now you're ready to change the game. Step 3. Don't reject, reframe. You've created a favorable climate, but the other side is still stuck on their position. I won't accept anything less than a 10% budget cut. You need to be home by 11 p.m., no exceptions. The natural temptation is to reject their position and state your own. A 10% cut is impossible. 11 p.m. is totally unfair. This leads you right back into the cycle of attack and defend. The breakthrough move is to do the opposite. Don't reject their position. Accept it as a starting point, and then reframe it. Reframing is like putting a new frame around a picture. You don't change the picture itself, but you change how it's seen. You take their hardline position and treat it as an interesting contribution to a problem you both need to solve. The secret weapon for reframing is the problem-solving question. Instead of saying, we can't do a 10% cut, you ask, why? You might say, that's an interesting target. Help me understand the concerns that lead you to that number. What problem are we trying to solve here? The moment they start explaining their reasons, the conversation has shifted from positions to underlying interests. You've changed the game. If asking why feels too direct, you can ask, why not? Propose a different idea and ask, what would be wrong with this approach? People love to criticize, and in explaining why your idea won't work, they will reveal their interests and concerns. One of the most powerful reframing tools is the what if question. What if we were to stretch the project out, so some of the cost falls into next year's budget? What if we found a way to save money in another area to meet your target? What if questions are magical? They move the conversation from a deadlock into a brainstorming session. You're suddenly exploring options together. And perhaps the most disarming technique of all is to ask for their advice. This is what a young Senator Joe Biden did in 1979 when he met with the veteran Soviet Foreign Minister, Andrei Gromyko. Gromyko gave a long, powerful speech on why the SAACA-2 Arms Control Treaty should be ratified without any changes. His position was an unequivocal niet. Instead of arguing, Biden reframed the entire situation. He said, Mr. Gromyko, you make a very persuasive case. But when I go back to the Senate, my colleagues are going to have concerns. You have more experience in these matters than anyone. How would you advise me to respond to their concerns? Gromyko, flattered, couldn't resist the temptation to coach the young American. He started grappling with the very problems he had just dismissed. By asking for advice, Biden had turned a foe into a consultant. He had reframed the negotiation as a joint effort to solve his problem, which was getting the treaty ratified. And in the end, Gromyko changed his mind and agreed to the amendment. By reframing, you redirect their energy. Instead of using their energy to resist you, you channel it toward solving the problem. You take their rigid position and use it as a lever to uncover interests. You've moved from a tug-of-war to a creative collaboration. Step 4. Don't push, build them a golden bridge. So now, you've managed your reaction, you've disarmed their emotions, and you've reframed the game. You're ready to reach an agreement. But they still hesitate. They're stalling. Why? Ury points out 4 common obstacles. 1. It's not their idea. They may reject a proposal simply because it came from you. 2. There are unmet interests. You might have overlooked a key concern, often an emotional one like a need for recognition or autonomy. 3. They fear losing face. No one wants to look like they backed down or gave in. 4. The decision feels too big, too fast. It's just easier for them to say no. When faced with this resistance, our instinct is to push, to insist, to apply pressure. This is a great deal. You should take it, but pushing only makes it worse. It underscores that it's your idea, it ignores their unmet needs, and it makes it harder for them to agree without looking weak. So, once again, you do the opposite. Instead of pushing them toward a solution, you draw them in. As the ancient Chinese strategist Sun Tzu said, you build your opponent a golden bridge to retreat across. Your job is to start where they are and guide them across the chasm of their resistance. Think of the story of a young Steven Spielberg. When he was about 13, a bully made his life miserable. Day after day, it was bloody noses and humiliation. He couldn't beat him. So he tried a different approach. He went to the bully and said, "I'm making a movie about fighting the Nazis, and I want you to play the war hero." The bully laughed at first, but then agreed. Spielberg made him the squad leader, gave him a helmet and costume. And after that, the bully became his best friend. Spielberg had built a golden bridge. He understood the bully had an unmet interest, the need to feel important. By offering him a new way to be a hero instead of a villain, he allowed him to retreat from his position as a bully without losing face. He made it easy for him to say yes. How do you build a golden bridge in your own negotiations? First, involve the other side. Don't present a finished solution. Ask for their ideas. Build on what they say. Critique ideas together. Let them put their fingerprints all over the proposal. When they feel a sense of ownership, it becomes their idea too. Second, satisfy their unmet interests. Look beyond the obvious demands for money or terms. What are the underlying human needs at play? The need for security? For recognition? For a sense of belonging or control? A business owner might refuse to sell his company not because the price is too low, but because the business is his baby and he fears losing his identity. A solution like making him president of a joint venture could satisfy his need for autonomy and recognition, unlocking a deal that money alone could not. Third, help them save face. Think about how they will explain this agreement to their boss, their family, or their friends. You need to help them write their victory speech. Frame the agreement in a way that makes them look good. Maybe circumstances have changed, making their old position no longer relevant. Maybe you can point to a fair standard, like the market rate, so it doesn't look like they gave in to you, but to what was fair. Give them the credit, even if it was your idea. As the saying in Washington, D.C. goes, There's no limit to what you can accomplish if you don't care who gets the credit. Finally, go slow to go fast. Make the process easy. Break a big decision into smaller, manageable steps. Start with the easiest issues to build momentum. If they are skeptical, propose a trial period or an experiment. Don't rush them to the finish line. Guide them across the bridge, one step at a time. Building a golden bridge is about making yes the path of least resistance. It's about creating a solution that is not only good for you, but attractive and honorable for them. But what if, after all this, they still refuse to cross? What if they still believe they can win by using force? Step 5. Don't escalate. Use power to educate. This is the final barrier. Your opponent sees the negotiation as a win-lose game, and they are determined to win. They believe their alternative to negotiating, what Ury calls their BATNA, or best alternative to a negotiated agreement, is better than your golden bridge. At this point, you might feel you have no choice but to escalate. To fight fire with fire. To use your power to force them to submit. But this leads to what Ury calls the power paradox. The harder you make it for them to say no, the harder you also make it for them to say yes. Coercion breeds resistance. A battle for victory often ends in a lose-lose outcome for everyone. The breakthrough approach is to use your power not to defeat them, but to educate them. Your goal is to bring them to their senses, not to their knees. You must show them, clearly and calmly, that their best option is not to fight, but to negotiate. How do you do this? First, ask reality testing questions. Let them teach themselves. When the Chrysler Corporation was on the verge of bankruptcy, its president, Lee Iacocca, went to the U.S. Congress for a loan guarantee. Many lawmakers were ideologically opposed. Instead of arguing, Iacocca educated them by asking questions. Would this country really be better off if Chrysler folded and unemployment went up another 0.5% overnight? Do you want to pay $2.7 billion now in unemployment and welfare, or do you want to guarantee half that amount with a good chance of getting it all back? He was asking, in essence, do you prefer the consequences of no agreement, or would you like to cross the golden bridge? Faced with the stark reality of that choice, Congress approved the loan. You can ask questions like, what do you think will happen if we don't agree? What do you expect me to do if we can't reach a deal? You could take this to court, of course, but what will that cost you in time and money? Second, if questions aren't enough, you warn, don't threaten. A threat is personal and confrontational. If you don't agree, I'm going to sue you. A warning is objective and respectful. If we can't reach an agreement, I'm afraid this matter will inevitably end up in court. I'd much rather we find a solution ourselves. A threat is about what you will do to them. A warning is about what will happen as a consequence of the situation. It depersonalizes the use of power, making it easier for them to accept the reality without feeling personally defeated by you. Third, you may need to demonstrate your BATNA. If your alternative to a deal is to go on strike, workers might wear black armbands to work. It's a powerful, symbolic demonstration of their resolve and power, without the cost of an actual strike. It's showing, not just telling. It makes your power credible. Finally, if you must use your BATNA, use the minimum power necessary. Your goal is only to bring them back to the negotiating table. When the Cuban Missile Crisis began, President Kennedy chose a naval blockade, a limited use of power, instead of an immediate airstrike. He exercised restraint to avoid provoking an all-out war. He used just enough power to make negotiation the most attractive option for the Soviets. Throughout this entire process, you must keep the golden bridge clearly in view. You are not trying to corner them. You are trying to convince them that the only viable way out is the one you have built together. You are sharpening their choice, making the consequences of no agreement clearer and the benefits of agreement more alluring, until they choose, of their own accord, to cross the bridge. And this brings us full circle. The 5 steps? Going to the balcony, stepping to their side, reframing, building a golden bridge, and using power to educate, are not just a linear process. They are a symphony. You are constantly on the balcony, managing your reactions. You are always ready to step to their side when emotions flare up. It's a continuous dance of empathy and assertion. Ury concludes with a beautiful story about a man who left 17 camels to his 3 sons. His will stated that the eldest son should get half, the middle son a third, and the youngest son a ninth. The sons were stumped. How do you divide 17 by 2, 3, or 9? They argued and despaired. Finally, they consulted a wise old woman. She thought for a moment and said, "See what happens if you take my camel." So they did. Now they had 18 camels. The eldest son took his half, which was 9. The middle son took his third, which was 6. And the youngest son took his ninth, which was 2. 9 plus 6 plus 2 equals 17. They had 1 camel left over. They gave it back to the wise old woman. In our most difficult negotiations, we are like those sons, stuck with 17 camels. We can't see a way forward. The breakthrough strategy is that 18th camel. It's the outside perspective, the creative addition that allows us to solve a problem that seemed impossible. It's the art of stepping back, looking at the situation from a new angle, and finding a way to not just divide the pie, but to expand it, so that everyone gets what they need, and you can give the extra camel back. Commentary. When you really absorb the message of getting past no, you realize it's so much more than a book about negotiation. It's a guide to human interaction. It's a philosophy for navigating conflict itself. The most profound lesson for me is that the key to persuading others lies not in the force of your arguments, but in your ability to understand and influence the environment in which they make decisions. You can't force someone to change their mind, but you can create the conditions in which they choose to change it themselves. That's a fundamental shift in thinking. It moves you from being a combatant to being an architect of a process, an architect of a solution. In a world that seems to grow more polarized every day, where social media rewards the loudest and most aggressive voices, Ury's message of strategic empathy feels more urgent than ever. We are conditioned to meet aggression with aggression, to shout down opposing views, to treat disagreement as a battle to be won. This book is a powerful antidote to that poison. It teaches that true strength lies not in your ability to overpower your opponent, but in your ability to win them over. The go-to-the-balcony metaphor alone is worth the price of the book. It's a mental tool you can use in any high-stakes situation. That moment of pause, of detaching from your own raw emotion, is where wisdom begins. It's the space between stimulus and response, and in that space lies your power to choose a better path. So how can you start using this in your life, right now? Here are 3 simple actions you can take. First, practice the balcony pause. The very next time you feel that flash of anger or frustration in a conversation, whether it's with a family member, a teacher, or a friend, just stop. Before you say a word, take 1 deep breath and ask yourself, what do I really want to achieve here? That single question is your first step up to the balcony. It can change the entire course of the conversation. Second, for the next week, hunt for the word but in your conversations. Every time you're about to say it when you disagree with someone, consciously replace it with and. For example, instead of saying, "I understand your point, but I think you're wrong," try, "I understand your point, and I see it a little differently." Feel the shift in energy. It's no longer a confrontation, it's a contribution. Third, ask 1 advice question. The next time you're facing resistance from someone in a position of authority, try asking for their advice. Instead of demanding a different outcome, You could say, "I'm facing a real challenge here, and given your experience, I was hoping you could offer some advice on how I should proceed." It's disarming, it's respectful, and it can transform an adversary into a mentor. At the end of the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln was criticized by a woman for speaking of the Southern rebels with sympathy. She told him he should be thinking of destroying his enemies. Lincoln's reply is the perfect summary of this book's philosophy. He said, "Why, madam, do I not destroy my enemies when I make them my friends?" That's the true power of getting past no. It's not about defeating the person on the other side of the table. It's about defeating the problem, and in the process, turning an opponent into a partner. That was the book summary of Getting Past No by William Ury. We've touched on the core strategies today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found when you make the journey yourself. The magic of a book like this happens in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase connects with your own life in a way you didn't expect. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is a journey worth taking. If anything we've talked about today has sparked a curiosity in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning tactics, it's an experience that can genuinely change the way you navigate the world and the people in it. Also, if you found this summary valuable, and you'd like to continue exploring the ideas within the world's most influential books, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know that this work is making a difference, and it ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.